Good afternoon, Fockers. So this afternoon, a bit of a change from the norm. This one for the educated, for the PhDers, the university degrees, the advanced education. Just some questions about gravity. It's not 100% about the flat or round, but it is the globetards, the foot soldiers of the science. They have this thing where they keep asking how things work. In the flat earth model, how does the solar eclipse work? Where does the sun go? What about volcanic eruptions? Where do they happen? And on and on and on we go. But the truth is that the globers don't even know how their own model works. They don't. So why do they keep asking flurfers? I am now a flurfer. I swore myself in a while back now. I've been an undercover flurf, a flat earther, been a round earther all of my life. But it doesn't make any sense, especially the flying upside down thing, because it only has a diameter, an alleged diameter of 12,742 kilometers. That's not big. You would notice if you were flying downhill to the southern hemisphere. The globetards, they've somehow been trained to ignore the very obvious and go for other ones that are not so obvious. It's a good system to create division amongst the troops. This is about gravity. You know, the bulge. Now, I say Brian and Neil, Simon Dan out of respect, because a few years ago, before I was messing about with flat earth paraphernalia, I spent a year trying to contact you, Neil, Brian, Simon Dan, Brian Green. Why is the sun directly behind the moon during a solar eclipse? It was the absolute light and what I used to say, Mickey Mouse finite light, which I still say, because during a solar eclipse, it's so obvious that the sun is directly behind the moon. It's more than obvious. It's just another sign of how bad things are. In that scenario, when the sun is directly behind the moon, as seen from the sweet spot on planet Earth, the globetard, the science folk, they don't think the sun is there. It's 8 minutes and 20 seconds somewhere else. It isn't, okay? But now we go on to gravity. Now I'm saying Brian and Neil, I didn't do much of a search for Simon Dan. I've got a bit of a spot for Simon Dan. I think he's in the wrong place at the wrong time. Where's the remote control? Would be good to find that about now. There it is. Okay, folks, this is the reason. We're hearing the globetard. I'm saying that in a nice way, not being nasty. None of this is nasty. Just answers to some questions that need answering, right? They have got this stuff from somewhere.
What happens is there is a bulge of water, two of them on opposite sides of the Earth, caused by the sun and the moon, and Earth turns inside that bulge. Mm-hmm. So when we say the water rises and falls tidally, what's happening is we are rotating into the bulge and then out of the bulge.
So the bulge is already there.
It's already there.
And all we kind of do is pass through the
Pass
bulge.
through, and the water gets high and it gets low. So we're stuck with language from our own perspective rather than language of what's actually happening.
And that we're stuck with language from our own perspective rather than language of what's happening. I'm going to have to leave that one for now. What's worrying is there is talk of a bulge. There is talk of a bulge. Just 4 questions, if I may, okay? 4 questions. Hang on. I nearly forgot. Coxie! Don't forget Brian, do we?
When things rotate around in circles, other forces come into play. In this case, a force called the centrifugal force. So that's the force you feel if you're hanging onto a roundabout going faster and faster, and you have to hang on tighter and tighter because of the force trying to throw you off. That's the centrifugal force. Now, bring the moon back. Now there are 2 forces at play in this system. There's a gravitational pull, the moon, and pull everything towards it, and there's that centrifugal force trying to throw everything off. But think about the ocean here. That's closer to...
Look, we don't need to listen to this, because once you've heard one, they're all the same, and they're all wrong. They're all obviously terribly, terribly wrong, aren't they? Now, the globetards, they're like foot soldiers, and they're running around and they're asking all of these questions, and at the very same time, they are totally oblivious and clueless to what's happening with the gravitation, the moon, the water, the tides. 4 questions. 4 questions. Folks, please share this. I'd love to have a one-on-one, a televised, something, anything, with Mr. Tyson or with Mr. Brian Cox or with Simon Dan about this. But bearing in mind that you wouldn't be able to say, well, you could say, science doesn't care about your common sense, Paul. And I will go, well, I don't really care what science thinks about my common sense. It's not up to science to whether it likes or it doesn't like my common sense. I make that judgment call, and I think it's important. And I know for a fact this isn't about science. It is about common sense. Comes before the science. Stops science in its tracks. Now, 4 questions. Common sense is staying, and the universe doesn't have to make sense to me. That one, it's not even a case of the universe doesn't have to make sense to me. It's a case of the universe doesn't have to make sense to me. That line is over there. I'm up here. I've passed that line. I'm knocking on the door to the twilight zone. This isn't about making sense. It's a circus. And you must know, nobody is that confused that they can't work out what should be happening here. 4 questions. Bearing in mind my common sense is staying. First 3 are over here. If there is a bulge, and you clearly just told us that there is, the bulge with the moon orbiting along the equator, the pictures, the pretty pictures that are drawn for everybody, the bulge, I did a universal bulge. I should have come elongated, we know what we're saying. The bulge would be along the equator, yeah? It's obvious. That's where the moon is orbiting us as we spin and the water stays on. Now, knowing that we have a moon that is orbiting us as we spin, you would think, this is where the common sense is valuable tool, you would have to think that the bulge would be along the equator, wouldn't you? Is there anybody who would disagree with that? That's why it would be good to do the one that televised, anywhere, anytime, any place. Short notice, I don't need any notes or anything. please share this, folks, especially flirters, if you'd like me to try and make a date with either Neil deGrasse Tyson or Mr. Cox. I'd love to. Common sense days. The universe has to make some kind of sense. And we use the stick method, the talking stick. That's how it would have to happen, because I've seen some of the conversations and I just get talked over. So one person gets a stick, can say their bit, then the other person gets it. And see which one is standing. And no empirical evidence, because if the empirical evidence was the evidence that somehow came up with a bulge, then that can stay where it is, don't you think? It's time for common sense to come back. Number one, an equatorial bulge caused by the moon's gravitational pull. If that is the case, why are the 4 highest tides all up north? And when I say up north, they couldn't be further north. We have at number 1 spot, the Bay of Fundy. Number 2 spot, Ungava Bay in Quebec. The number 3 spot this week is the Bristol Channel. And the number 4 spot is the Cook Inlet in Alaska. Now, if we put this down like this, what you'll see is these 4 all end up at the top. Not end up, when they come over, look, Bristol, they're at the top because of the 23.5 degrees and 4 centimeters due to the amount of water pumped and displaced over a period of time. These things are at the very top of the planet. Now the bulge, even when you draw the pretty pictures, when you explain it, is obviously along the equator. So how have the 4 highest tides ended up 20 to 30 degrees south of the North Pole, or 60 to 70 degrees north of the equator? Very illogical, highly illogical. In fact, so illogical, all of the red flags have gone up. But instead of acknowledging the illogical, it's pumped and displaced, isn't it? The second one, which it should be 1A and 1B. If there is a bulge, the Gulf of Mexico, just south of the north of the equator, but nowhere near as north as the Bay of Fundy, etc. The Mediterranean Sea, again, north of the equator, but nowhere near the North Pole. Why, if it is an equatorial bulge caused by the moon spinning, why are these things back to front? Why are the highest tides up north? And why is the least of the tide action along the equator where it should be? It's illogical. If it's empirical evidence that we're still going by, don't we think it's time to maybe have a look at Newton's laws again? I mean, law number 1, an object at rest will stay at rest until something knocks it off of its perch. That isn't a law and it isn't science. That is common sense. Number 2, an object in motion will carry on its motion unless an external force stops it. So it could run out of fuel, and then gravity, density and buoyancy will take over, and friction, and slowly slow it down. It would then revert back to not moving until somebody pushes me. The first 2 laws, common sense. How is that science? How is that science? An object at rest will stay at rest. It doesn't get any more common sense than that. And then we skip to the third, every act. Look, it's not about that. And then we have the third question on the right hand side. The tide, the moon, the spinning of Earth, and the orbiting of the moon around the spinning Earth. I moved you over there and then do this. As this is happening, the tide, when it comes in, we're going towards the slack tide. Tide comes in, depending where you are, we're going to go for the average, the normal 6 hourly run in, and then the 6 hourly run out, give or take a few minutes. Tide comes in, gets to near the top and stops. This slack period can last between 5 minutes and 60 minutes. Now 60 minutes is an hour, okay, for those of you who aren't too sure. How is it possible that a spinning moon that is creating a gravitational force on the water of the spinning planet, right? Where does an opening for this slack tide enter the equation? Where? How? How does it happen? How does this happen? 1 hour. But then, when that tide drops, it goes back the same way that it came in. How is that? Motion of the moon with a spinning planet. How is that? Where do we get a 1 hour? These are serious questions, mind. It's not a joke. It stops. Yep. It stops for up to an hour and then drops again. How? Where do we cater for this? That's question number 3. That's one of my own observations, by the way. Number 4. You just explained it earlier, didn't you? Both of you did, Neil and Brian. You kind of stuck with the language from your own perspective rather than language with what's happening. I presume you're talking something about that. Anyway, now, this bulge. The sun and the moon, Earth, bulge. We're in the new moon position. The moon, we don't know where the moon goes. It's there somewhere, they say. It's said that the moon and the sun are pulling on the tide. The new moon position is the highest of the tides. It cannot be argued with. But that's where it comes to an end. We have the first quarter, which is another absurdity, but let's go for the big 2, okay? We then have the full moon position, where the sun is pulling one way and the moon is pulling the other way. It could be said they're having like a tug of war. Here you can clearly see them working together, and here they are A, working together, B, working against each other, C, not working at all. Which one is it? B. They're working against each other, aren't they? Like an arm wrestle, that's pushing, getting nowhere, and the other one is the opposite, pulling, a tug of war. Together, as one, against each other. How do we get a bulge here. Why would you think there is a bulge if the sun is pulling one way, the moon is pulling the other, and Earth, believe it or not, has 6 times the gravitational pull of the moon? So with the sun pulling and the moon pulling, and Earth in a good position on that one, why do we get the second highest tides? No empirical evidence, no science, no quantum gravity. This is about common sense. It's not only a disgrace, it's an insult to everyone's intelligence to make people believe that this is reinforcing each other's gravitational pull. And that is question number 4. How are the sun and moon reinforcing each other in the full moon position? This is children's stuff. The pretty pictures, the animations, the explanations that are given by loads of different people about how the tides and the moon works, it's all wrong. It's all illogical, isn't it? Why is something that is so simple being turned into a circus? Why? How is it people don't realise? That's what I don't get. How are people not realising the things that they're believing? And then on top of that, they're coming over with absolutely no knowledge of what's going on in their own broken down model of reality, and coming and asking questions about the flat earth when they don't know. See, this is the thing. I've been through this for years with the speed of light, thrust in a vacuum, the pyramids, and the carving of the 2.5 ton stones with the copper hand tools. It's just a string of absurdity/lies. Common sense, mine is going nowhere. So I challenge you, Neil, Brian, both of you together. Let's do it, but with the talking stick. You don't tamper with my common sense. Don't try to make me think or believe that the universe doesn't have to make sense to me. It doesn't. But it cannot get too loco either. And right now, está loquísimo. Loquísima. And what was the other one? Talking stick. We do it with a talking stick, so that there's none of this bullying, because I've seen the conversations, the way they go down. There's only one outcome: stick. You have the talking stick now, Neil. You'll go. Go on, Brian, you'll go. I'll have a go. Simon, Dan, go. Common sense versus science. Science won't get out of the gates. This is all illogical. It's all lies. And I don't think it's what humanity needs right now. So anytime, any place, please drop the answers for these very, very basic questions. They'd be basic for you. And you could even maybe throw in that a little bonus, a little treat, with why the sun is directly behind the moon during a solar eclipse. If it is finite light, what would an eclipse, solar eclipse, look like played out with absolute light? How would that play out? How different would it be? Of course it wouldn't be different. This light is absolute. There is no delay. So, folks, flurfers and those globetards that would like to see common sense have a little runabout with science. Share this. Share it, please. I've been hounding them. Well, I hounded them for at least a year. 3, 4 messages each about the speed of light. Simon Dan, all credit to him, was the only person to get back to me. We locked horns. Our horns are still locked. It's about the speed of light, and Dan reckons that we would expect to see what we do see, the 8-minute and 20-second light delay. But where is it? There is none, is there? And then we've locked horns with everything, Dan, don't we? Solar eclipses, speed of light, gravitational pull. You try to make fun, but logic and common sense aren't going anywhere. They're here to stay. Globe, moon, flat Earth, round Earth, flat Earth, round Earth, flat Earth, round Earth. Flat Earth. Flat Earth. Where's the flat Earth? It's not cricket to be lying to the children and confusing them, making the illogical seem logical and the logical illogical, is it? That's what's happening. So, I'm calling it out. I'm calling liars and charlatans. It's quite obvious what's going on. So, silence will be classed as admission of guilt, of lying. There needs to be some kind of answer to what's happening here, I think. I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of the flurfers. We're a merry bunch of people. Join the Flurf Club. It's the only one that makes sense. Right, folks, we're at 27:45, 46, 47, and we're going to call that. Why are the 4 highest tides, the Bay of Fundy, Ungava Bay, Bristol Channel, and the Cook Inlet, all up north? If the moon is orbiting, where's right? If there is a bulge, why is it places like the Gulf of Mexico, not too far from the equator, and the Mediterranean Sea, as you can see here, it's right. Why does the drop of the tide, why? How does that happen? Why does it drop and rise and drop and rise from the same direction? If it's a tide, would it not go like a Mexican wave over and down, follow the bulge? There is no bulge. It's an insult to humanity's intelligence. And the last one, how are the sun and the moon coming even close to reinforcing each other's pull, gravitational pull, in the full moon position? We give the new moon the benefit of the doubt, because that's where it starts. Gravitational pull, it's the highest tide, but everything stops right after that. None of it makes sense. So, in your own time, please, some kind of answer is needed, because it's getting ridiculous. The foot soldiers, it isn't their fault, is it? It isn't the foot soldiers. All right, folks. Buenas noches, and thank you for your time. Laters.